Hey, everybody, this is Brett Ingram, and this is the optYOUmize podcast, the show that helps entrepreneurs build their dream business and dream life. Today, we're talking with Devin Sizemore, connector, speaker, consultant, and author of Connection Expansion. You're one connection away from massive success in your life and business. I'm super excited because I think 100% the power of connections to transform our results is indisputable. And sometimes, unfortunately, that gets lost in all the stuff that we've got to do. So, with that, welcome, Devin, and thanks for joining us.
Brett, thanks for having me, man. Excited for the conversation.
Yeah, I am too. And I'm particularly excited about the fact because I'm going to start off with an admission here. One of my big regrets in my professional career is I was so busy doing, I didn't spend a lot of time building connections or relationships, even though I had a lot of opportunities to do that. And when I look back across my career, I 100% attribute, I think that one thing alone set me back and took me a lot longer to get to where I needed to be. And in a lot lonelier and solitary way as well. So, which is no fun. So, got a lot of stuff I want to ask you, but let's start off with your personal story. Can you share with us your background?
Yeah, so I always start with I'm a serial entrepreneur. I came out of the womb just with like a innate hunger for business. And that went through all the things as a kid, just whatever I could do to make money while solving a problem, right? Fast forward to right out of college, I launched a marketing agency, bought a couple agencies, scaled and sold, did a bunch of other things. So cat cafe, co-working space, manufacturing company. And through all of that, I've had my consulting company. And so that's always been kind of the stable thing while I'm dabbling in everything else. And just, yeah, I love business. Like truly it's the thing I geek out on. And the more we can talk about it, the better.
Yeah. So for you, you're one of those people that it was in your blood young. I feel I'm the same way. I mean, when I was a kid, I didn't just have a lemonade stand and a nice tea stand out in the front yard. I had my brother making me signs. We went all out to sell this lemonade. I had two paper routes, made and sold chestnut necklaces door to door in the back of a wagon with one of my neighbors. There was something about it that just, I always loved the idea of being able to sort of create, in a weird way. Like people don't think of it as creativity because you think of that as art or music or something like that. But there's something about entrepreneurship that it really sort of strikes that chord with the creativity inside you also. And I always love that too. And it's funny because nobody in my family is like that. I don't come from a line of entrepreneurs. Nobody in my family encouraged me to go into business, but it's just something I love. So I think we're kindred spirits in that way for sure. So you own a marketing agency, a co-working space, a manufacturing company, a cat cafe, consulting. I mean, that's a wide range of different businesses. So are there lessons that you learned or commonalities that you think are universal in business?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of those are proving theory, right? And the theory is all grounded in my book. And what we do now is like, I'm confident we can scale anything in any industry and have significant impact using a core set of best practices, good value alignment. But if I look back on that, like I would say, and it's funny, I just recorded another podcast and I said, if you're going to get in partnership with someone, date first. I for sure made the mistake of jumping into bed too quick with people, which was unfortunate. Like it killed a couple of those companies. And so do joint ventures, like play in each other's lanes, but like keep it separate. And then once you see success and you see alignment and good role dynamics, then get in business together. Other than that, man, the core principles are the core principles. You got to scale, you got to meet people, because if you don't have revenue, you don't have a business.
Yeah, and I love that philosophy. And I've lived a number of examples. I was actually an employee at a company that was small, essentially family-owned company, and their struggle was how do we scale? So one of the people that was the owner, she had a friend who was really good at that and had come from a different business, but they were friends from youth. So they brought her in as a partner, no trial, no nothing. From day one, I could tell instantly that their values were not aligned. The main owner cared a lot about each individual client, how we were doing everything. The secondary person was just pure numbers driven. So the whole thing was churn and burn. It was like stockbroker time. And it lasted about 3 months and the whole thing imploded. So that was definitely, and in my own travels, thankfully I didn't make that mistake personally, but I fully agree with what you're saying, because in the affiliate marketing realm, we were making software, selling it, things like that. I talked to so many people that said, I don't want to partner with anybody because the time that I tried it, it was a disaster. It never worked out. For me personally, I actually worked with somebody else in the capacity, like you mentioned. We were JV partners, but we weren't in the same business. So we did a lot of joint venture work, recognized, hey, this really works. And so we did that for several years while it made sense. And I think it's a really good lesson for anybody, because it's easy to look at the positives that somebody else can bring, but if you don't consider all the other elements, it's more than just about numbers. Then you could get yourself into trouble. So that's good, and I love your idea about systems and processes too, because that's the only way you can scale. If you're flying by the seat of your pants, that's not going to be very scalable. So every business owner has heard about the importance of referrals, like word of mouth, all that other stuff. But most of the people I've talked to anyway don't really have a plan for it. It's sort of accidental. Why do you think professionals struggle with getting a predictable amount of referrals from their network?
Yeah, amazing question, man. I call this the referral dilemma, right? It's exactly what you described. Everybody wants more because when you get word of mouth business or you get referred to the right person, it's an easy close, higher close rate, usually a better fit, usually better people. But there's no system or strategy that most people can lean into to do this. And if there is one, it's typically only focused on getting referrals from current clients, which is a very limited scope of opportunity. In fact, the best client referral strategies generate 5% return, which 5% as an entrepreneur is failure. And so what we do is we talk about changing your ask. And this is where people go wrong. We focus on connections, not referrals. So a connection is an inbound introduction to anybody. A referral is a qualified introduction to a prospect. One is very limited, very hard to get, comes in small numbers. One is very easy to get and opens up a bunch of opportunity. So we go through the connection expansion exercise, which teaches you how to identify your ideal client. Great. You probably know how to do that. And then expand it to the vendors, where they gather, where they seek education, who influences them, who do they trust, who's a connector. We then shift our ask. So if Brett goes, hey, I want to know this ideal client, great. But your ask should be, hey, I want to meet the business CPAs because they have access to my ideal client. Or for me, I want to meet mastermind hosts because they tend to be great joint venture partners and we can do a lot together. What happens when you shift your ask up to a many to many or a one to many ask, there's no friction now. When you're asking for the ideal client, you are asking that person to narrow down their network to the qualified people that they want to position to you so that you can sell to them. There are a lot of friction points in what I just said. So in order to get more referrals, we need to switch to getting more connections, and we get more connections by shifting our ask to the bigger picture. And what happens is we start having more meetings, we find more opportunities, we find ourselves in rooms where our competition doesn't play, we find a bunch of joint venture, integrated presentation, integrated offers, all these other things, because we're now slowing down and looking at the long game and the big picture, not the short term need to generate revenue.
Yeah, I mean, well said, right? I mean, like you just sort of encapsulated the entire thing. It's a really powerful distinction that you're talking about, because we've all been taught, you go to a conference, you connect with people, you ask them for referrals, or you have some stilted, weird way that you try to introduce yourself to people and give value and do this. But let's be honest, it feels a little bit kind of phony. It's weird. And I think the idea of just expanding your network and not putting the focus or the onus on the person you're asking to do the qualifying and to do all those other things is so much more powerful, because like you said, nobody's going to mind if they like you introducing you to other people they know. But if they have to, match make, in a sense that they're trying to find somebody who now is going to pay you to do what you do and provide the service, it's a little awkward. Also, even if they think it's a good fit, right? I know for me, one of my concerns would be, what if this doesn't go well? Now I've sort of burned both of these relationships at once. If I introduce you guys and then you talk and there's no like presupposed idea or value exchange and you guys come up with one, fantastic. If you don't, there was never any promise of that in the first place. So I love that approach. Is that something that came natural to you? Was it intuitive? Was it something that you figured out through trial and error?
Yeah, it was all born when I had my marketing agency, right? Super crowded marketplace, very competitive, dog eat dog. And I kept going to events with best practice advice, right? Going to networking and doing it the way that people were talking about it. And what I realized is like, man, I'm really limiting my success because I'm not connecting with everyone. And I'm making assumptions about who can add value to me. And I'm following up more sales focused instead of just nurture focused. And so I just started unpacking it to changing the things I can control in a way that was others focused. And so I started showing up different, asking questions different, following up different, booking meetings different, conducting those meetings different, following up from those meetings different. And we just started slowly putting all these pieces together. And what we started to realize is the more meetings we had, the more success we had, right? Okay, well, if that's a true statement, then we need to make it easier for people to want to meet with us. So we changed all the language, we changed all the scripting, all about the other person. Then from having those meetings, we started to figure out like, okay, if I can't sell you something, you don't need my product or service, how do I get value out of it? Okay, well, I want connections because inbound connections equal more meetings, which give me more opportunity. Okay, so how do I get more? Well, I train by doing, by giving you connections properly and edifying and endorsing you and helping you build your network strategically. Great. So there's another key to the puzzle. Okay, now how do I check in and nurture you forever in a way that you're comfortable with it? And you're not like, oh, this guy keeps nagging me. Great. So that builds our nurture language. And then all of that ends up in the CRM so that we can babysit it forever. And so it became this thing, which 7 years ago, we then built a whole system around and we've tested it since, and now it's in the book. But it just started with us trying to solve these problems where the industry was telling us to do something and we went, man, there's got to be a better way that also feels better, like that's more authentic with who I am versus this like aggressive sales mentality that turns people off and limits your success.
I love that you said authenticity because I'll be honest with you, that's one of the problems I always had. I consider myself a reasonable people person. You know, I'm not an introvert, but I'd go to these conferences, I'd go to these events, and I always felt awkward to, just going up to people to talk to them because, I'm sort of like, it sort of felt phony. Like I got to say these things to start this relationship, but really the person knows I'm only doing it because I'm trying to see if if we could partner together in a way that, sure, yeah, it benefits us both, but selfish. I felt a little selfish about it, and I just felt like something a little phony and inauthentic about it. And so I would go to some of these conferences and I'd come back with business cards from people I met and stuff like that. I never reached out to any of them because I just felt weird about it, you know? And I've even been to conferences and I've heard speakers speak that are connectors, and the strategies they give you, to me, still, I felt like, I don't know. Yes, you've created a couple of catchphrases that now work, I suppose, more effectively than just the generic thing. But I still felt the spirit behind it was the same, which is why I resonate so much with what you're talking about. Because with the podcast, right? One of the things that I do, obviously a huge believer in connections and relationships now. And so any way that I can help people, I always do that. And what I find is I don't ask people for anything. And I got people sending me oh, you're going to want to talk to this person. You're going to want, and it's awesome. I just find that so much more, it's a lot more fun too, isn't it?
It's, you're not wrong. A lot of the advice out there is still salesy in nature. It still has a game or a mission, and it's not pure. And you're right. I don't ask for anything either, right? I just position you to want to help because of how I answer questions, how I train you to ask questions. And at some point, I create enough relationship equity where you go like, man, this guy Devin's done a lot for me. What can I do for him? And then that's where the connections come back, right? And so that's why we get, last week, 54 inbound connections. Like that's crazy. What if you had
Yeah.
54 people saying, hey, you got to meet this guy coming into your business in your world? And the reason all of that works is, yes, we still have questions you should ask, but it's all about the other person. Everything we talk about is about the other person. It has nothing to do with your ability to sell. It just has to do with your ability to connect and be a genuine person. If you can do that, the whole system works. And there's nothing weird about it. Like, it's just doing things in a controlled way that position you for success without feeling weird.
Yeah, yeah, I like that. Because I'll tell you too, just from my experience and what I've seen and what I've going to some conferences, and I found that the majority of the like deals or partnerships or whatever you want to call it that ever ended up getting created out of those usually happened sort of over a beer in the downtime. It wasn't during the connection period or the time where you're supposed to be networking. It was in the spaces in between that where people were natural, they were authentic, and they were just hanging out. And they saw, hey, look, there's a commonality here. Look, meet this guy. They're all talking together and stuff like that. And I know personally of a number of very successful partnerships that were born that way. And so I do think that that's really powerful. So you talk about the connection expansion exercise. I know we've been sort of dancing around it, but is there something specific about it in terms of a process? Like how do we actually implement that if it's something that we wanted to use?
Yeah, so I'll give you the real estate example because it's the one that most people can relate to, and then you can apply this to your own business. So if we ask a realtor who they want to know, they're going to give us an ideal client profile. Let's say that they want to know either move up buyers, right? They might want to know first time buyers, which typically that's a family, they've got a kid on the way, or they're looking for retirees who are trying to offload the house and downsize, right? So there's like usually three main buckets. It doesn't matter which one you pick. So let's use the retiree one, right? The person that's downsizing, empty nesters, moving into a retirement community. If that's the one that you want to target, I go, great. Who has access to them? Who do you want as a referral partner? Realtors default to mortgage lenders and insurance agents. Those are their two, like, oh, those, they know my buyer. Great. What is every other realtor asking for? Mortgage lenders and insurance agents. And so we start talking about, okay, looking at the six buckets, which of these have access to your client? So where does that senior citizen spend money, right? What stores do they frequent? Do they go to bingo night? Where do they gather? Where do they seek education? Maybe they're learning about technology because they want to send pictures to their grandkids, right? Where are they and how do we get to them in a different way? So one thing we could do is we can go, hey, I want to get in front of the bingo night. So as a realtor, how can I sponsor that or get involved with this thing where there's a lot of ideal clients in a room and I'm the only person there? And so we really start to look at, where are your customers gathering, seeking education, spending money, being influenced, or who do they trust? And how do we build our ask and our network around our customer in all these buckets? That's how we play the long game. Because what happens is if you get enough of those relationships, anytime your customer raises their hand, you have enough people advocating for you going, Devin's the man. You got to talk to him. Brett's the only guy. Like, that's my guy. And all of a sudden, you end up on a meeting with someone that's like, I've been referred to you 14 times. Like, there's no other options, right? And so that's what we're trying to change is, again, you should know your ideal client profile. You could put it in two or three buckets like the realtor. For each of those buckets, you start looking at, how do I get to this person? For the young buyer, how do I get to them? Okay, we're looking at nurseries or children's furniture stores or child cares and daycares or nanny services or anything around like first time parenting, like anything we can do to get in that world and like sponsor, partner, be engaged. We're starting to see like, oh, hey, this person's having a kid. Well, if they're having a kid, maybe it's a good conversation on, do you want to buy a house, right? So we start to hack networks in a totally different way again, and it unlocks the ask because we're not chasing clients, we're chasing partners.
Yeah, very cool. And I imagine, you probably don't need a lot of heavy sales tactics if 14 people told somebody to come to you. They're probably sold before they walk through the door. So it's much easier in that regard. And I think that when those referrals come from people that are outside the sphere of what you're doing, it's also powerful because it's not aligned with the idea that you're selling something or providing something and expecting them to be your client or your customer. So you can see the power of that. So let me ask you this. in person versus online. Can this be done in both sort of formats and venues?
100%. The scripting works no matter how you work it, and it works no matter if you're a college kid or a billionaire. That's the fun part about the system is we've spent so much time A/B testing everything that you can go to an in-person networking event, use the networking questions and follow up. You can go to a virtual one, use the questions, get someone's contact info and follow up. Once they end up in the follow-up process, the rest of the process is identical. How you nurture your current network, identical. How you conduct connection meetings, it's exactly the same in person and online, except one might be a 60-minute meeting in person because you got to order coffee and waste some time, whereas online might be a 30-minute meeting because it's more efficient and effective. But it works both ways because, again, it's a script all about the other person. And so no matter how you're using it, it works.
Yeah, which is so important because nowadays it's ironic, right? I mean, we're more connected in some ways than ever through technology, but people feel more isolated than ever also. I know even for me, I have lots of partners, lots of affiliates and people that I've worked with over the years, but I don't see them very often, and I haven't met a lot of them in person ever. So we'll connect a little bit here and there, but so I think obviously it's a reality of today's day and age. So we've got to be able to do it either way. And I think if you could do it in a way where it's genuine and there's a connection there, it's one of the things I'll be honest with you I love about podcasting because unlike a social media post where I jump on there and comment on something you said and you thumbs up me or whatever else, like we're having a conversation. I'm getting to know you, you're getting to know me. And I love that aspect of podcasting. I also get to pick your brain about your expertise and I get to learn. And, so it's a heck of a lot of fun at the same time. But so you've helped a lot of people with this. You've seen a lot of this. Are there common mistakes that you see that people make when they're trying to build a professional network? Obviously, we've touched a little bit on some of them, but is there anything else that you think is really important to note?
Yeah. So the quote I always tell people and anyone I work with, put the post-it note on your monitor. Everybody wants to buy, nobody wants to be sold. Everybody wants to buy, nobody wants to be sold. You got to put this on there. The second you default to selling, to positioning yourself, to benefits and features, we can get into that debate on which ones you use. The fun part is you don't need any of it. As soon as you start selling anywhere in the process of building a relationship, the relationship's over. Now, if they raise their hand and say, hey, I need your product or service, then yes, move them into a sales process. But until they show intent, stop selling. Just focus on connecting, focus on adding value, focus on making connections, focus on providing resources that are free and value focused. Do all the things in the system. But the second you start selling, or your call to action and your signature of your email is too salesy, or you implement some sales language with a soft ask too early, the whole thing falls apart.
Interesting. Yeah, people have a very good sense of being able to sniff out stuff like that. It's funny. I learned this in sales too, something that's really fascinating. So I worked at a company for a few years and we had a script that you had to memorize. And we were door to door, like going to union members' households, sitting down at the kitchen table with the spouses and doing this thing for this insurance company that we were working for. And the script was magical. I'm going to be honest with you. It was so good. It was like 4 pages of single space type, and they covered every objection. And literally, if you went into the house and you just did it that way, right? And you did it in a way that was natural or whatever, but you went through the whole thing and you did it as a way of sort of presenting or just connecting with people without the thought in the back of your mind about, hey, I want to sell this or whatever. It worked like magic, like 2 out of 3 or 2 out of 4 or some ridiculous amount would convert. The minute that you went in, same script, same exact thing. The minute that you went in and you thought about the sale, for some reason, there was something about it. They could smell it and they start to almost back away. You get to the end and you're like, it's the same thing, but they didn't buy it. And I always found that really fascinating, but I think it is so true that you have to get into that phase where they're coming to you to say, please offer this to me because I want that, as opposed to you going, look, but it's got all these widgets, it's got all these features, and I promise you're going to really like it. it just, people sort of bristle at that. So that's funny. But what about a quick action listeners could take? So, okay, I'm sold on your idea. I want to do what you're talking about, but I'm old school. So I'm used to going, shaking hands. So what do you do? Like, okay, like how can I switch that up, or what things can I do short term to make changes there?
Yeah, just talk about the power of one, right? It only takes one meeting where you change the script. And so if you can book a meeting with anyone, or if you already have a meeting booked, like if you've already networked and booked what you probably classify as a discovery meeting, we want to switch that to a connection meeting. I want you to go into that meeting and I want you to ask, what do you do? Who are you serving? How did you get here? Where are you going? What's in your way? And how can I help you? There's the framing for your meeting. It's going to leave a very little bit of time at the end for them to ask about you. And when they ask, you're going to answer succinctly and directly. You're going to align. You're going to provide some value. Here's what I do. Here's what I'm looking for. Shift your ask to the bigger ask, not the client ask. And then how you follow up from the meeting is what's going to unlock everything. So when we follow up from the meeting, we're going to thank them for meeting and recap action items you committed to, they committed to. We're going to make 3 connections to them. Here's 3 people that I think are strategic vendors, people who have access to your ideal clients. Again, not to ideal clients, to the people who have access to them. And then we can start nurturing and following up. Everything I just said has nothing to do with selling again. Again, if they raise their hand and say, hey, I need your product or service, then move them into a sales process. But likely in that first meeting that you're treating as a discovery meeting, they probably haven't indicated that they need your product or service, yet you're trying to approach that meeting as a discovery meeting to figure out if they need it. Don't do that, because then you're missing all the other opportunities. You don't know what their spouse does, their friends do, what boards they sit on, what communities they're in. You don't know their previous life. You don't know anything. So why would you not have a bigger conversation to see how they can add value to you in so many other ways? And then you add value to them through connections and resources, thus unlocking your network, because it's 30% of the time. So if you make 100 connections, you'll get 30 back. That's a game worth playing. I want to get to 100 connections as fast as I can, knowing I'm going to get 30 back as fast as I can. And so that's the thing. It's the power of one. Just one meeting. We just want you to change the script, change the follow-up, change the feel to everything about the other person, and let's see what happens.
Yeah, and just from thinking through the questions you were asking, I can feel that if I were in a meeting and the person was saying those things to me, never in my mind would I be worried that, oh, here comes the close. Like it's so natural what you're asking, and it is so me focused, that it's disarming, because I'm not going to have my guard up or be concerned anymore that, oh, well, this is just about some veiled way to get me on the phone to try to, shovel products at me or whatever else. And so I also imagine that coming out of that meeting, the person that you're talking to is probably in some ways has their mind blown a little bit, because I suspect that not too many people go into calls like that and come out of it with that same experience. So it probably stands out for that reason as well, because what they're used to is what I already described, is that somebody's going to ask you a few questions just to get that stuff out of the way. But what they're really waiting for is, okay, now let me hit you with the hammer.
Yeah,
So
it's something you're going to deal with all the time, right? Matter of fact, you'll have people, when you start using the email script from following up for networking, you're going to have people go, well, what's the catch? Like, what's the motive? What's the whatever? There is none. I just want to get together, get to know you, figure out how I can help you. And they're like, there's no way that that's a true statement, because so many people are out there selling. And so why don't you do something different? What happens is the higher up a network you get, so the higher quality people, the more successful people, none of that exists, because we get on meetings, we collaborate quickly, and we find ways to add value to each other. In fact, most of my meetings now, before I get off, we've traded 3, 4, or 5 connections back and forth before we get off the meeting. We're already creating momentum. And yes, there are moments where you're like, damn, I do need your product or service. Can we schedule a demo? And then they'll raise their hand. Like I was on one the other day and the guy's like, I had no clue that's what you do. Like, here's my challenge. And you're like, cool, I know I asked you about it. And I saw that was a possible opportunity. And then they go, cool, like, could you help me with that? Yes. Now we can position them into, here's what we offer. Here's how we do it. And if that's something you want, happy to help, right? So it's really the opt-in language instead of the sales language. When we get into sales meetings, yes, there's a lot of tactics for how you ask questions, how you position, how you close, but that's not the goal because most people don't have enough volume for that to even matter. What we're trying to do is we're trying to fill your calendar with so many meetings and so much opportunity, you can't fail even if you suck at it because you'll create enough momentum. And if you follow the process and make connections and be others focused, it has to reciprocate. And a fraction of what comes your way will be set up perfect clients ready to buy. The rest are joint opportunities, podcasts, stages, events, all these other things that get you in front of ideal clients so you can make more money. So yeah, people are going to be taken aback, especially the smaller markets you are in the lower demographic you're targeting, meaning success demographics. There's a lot of tension because they're not used to others actually adding value to them.
Yeah, that's brilliant. Brilliant. That's awesome. I really like that. And I think that, I've seen firsthand the power of the connections, not from a revenue or sales standpoint, but also from an awareness. I think this is something that gets lost. It was lost on me. I'm somebody who feels like if I need to learn something, I can find a way to learn it. I'm good at figuring stuff out. I'm good at solving problems. So that sort of self-reliance is a blessing and a curse. Sometimes I take the hard approach because I don't have the answer and I'm going to go find it. There's 1,000 people out there that already have the answer. If I just had a connection with them and reached out and said, hey, I know that this is your wheelhouse. Do you have an idea for how I can 100%, because I've done that since and I've solved problems a lot faster. And it's fascinating to me because your whole frame of reference, your whole experiential knowledge, your ability to find alternative ways and faster ways to solve problems and reduce cycle times all improves when your network grows. And I think, those sometimes are things that get lost in the shuffle because we're focused on sales and revenue and all this other stuff. And sure, there's benefits there. But even beyond that, your scope of thinking, even in terms of your horizons for your business and directions you can go and strategies you can deploy. And so, yeah, that's really awesome. So let's talk a little bit about language within all of this, right? So are there specific words? I know some of it is how you say stuff, and I know some of it is what you say. Are there particular words or phrases that we want to use or want to avoid when we're relationship building?
Yeah. So let me validate your last statement too. So one thing I always tell people is, what if you could have whatever you need whenever you need it? That's really the outcome of this process, right? Whether that's a vendor, a problem, solving a personal thing. Like you want to be one phone call away from people taking quick action, giving you better service, better pricing, right? So yeah, here's the language, right? So let's say I met you at a networking meeting. The follow-up script's going to go, hey, Brett, it was great meeting you at XYZ event yesterday. I enjoyed briefly learning about you and your business. I'd love to schedule a time to learn more about you and your business so that I can make connections for you. Here's a link to my calendar. I look forward to connecting with you. That's the script. When I nurture long-term, the long-term nurture email sounds like this. Hey, Brett, I hope you're doing well and having a great day. It's been a while since we connected. What's new and exciting in your world? Any new challenges? Hey, what connections can I make for you? I look forward to hearing back from you. Everything in our language is about the other person engaging with us. So when we're trying to book a meeting, we're telling them why we want to meet with them to add value, to learn about them and help them. That's all that needs to be communicated because that gets us into a meeting. When we're in the meeting, again, we're asking the flow of questions for them. When we follow up from the meeting, we're making connections for them. When we nurture, we're checking in with them directly, personally, not on a newsletter blast saying, hey, let me know what's going on in your world. What we're doing is we're giving them the opportunity to communicate back with us, right? And say, hey, this is what's going on in my world. Thanks for asking. Here are my challenges. Here's this. When I tell you the challenges, now you can solve them with connections, right? Oh, here's a couple people that might be able to help you. And you continue to train your network to check in with you and make connections for you. And so it's really training by doing. Again, the only way you mess this process up is you start selling, right? So somewhere in this, you're like, oh, hey, I'd love to get together because you mentioned this thing and I think you need what I sell. Like, no, it doesn't matter. If you can get them into a meeting, did you not win? So even if you think that's a hunch, use the language that doesn't put up any red flags or barriers, get them into the meeting, discover and figure out between where they are and where they want to be when they identify their challenges in that meeting. Did they actually communicate that what you do is a challenge? And if so, then when they ask you what you do, then you can answer like, hey, Brett, you know what? You said that this is where you want to go and this is your challenge. Hey, you know what? I do that. I'd love the opportunity to help you there if you think I could. Otherwise, no worries. Following up from this meeting, I'm gonna make a few connections to people who have access to your ideal clients, and I'm gonna check in with you forever. So the language is exactly the two scripts I gave you, and we don't change anything. This is something I don't think people believe, and I even have to prove this to clients. How I follow up on a connection, scripted. How I follow up from networking, scripted. How I follow up from a connection meeting, scripted. How I nurture you long-term, scripted. These emails have been proven thousands of times with hundreds of clients. You literally don't have to change anything, and they're all in the book. Like they're fully all in the book. You can literally copy and paste them.
That's awesome. And you've memorized them anyway, so you're able to just share them. That's pretty
Yeah, but
cool.
15 years of using the same email, like I have friends that have received the same check-in email every 6 weeks for the last decade. And it's almost a joke. They're like, bro, really? Like this email again? Hey, thanks for replying, dude. What's going on? Like it created a conversation, which is what the goal of the email was. Whether they reply and go, you're annoying, fantastic. Thanks for replying. That's what the email is supposed to do. So by the way, how are you? Right. And so it creates the conversation anyways. Or now people love it. They're like, oh, thanks so much for checking in. Here's my ask. I'm changing. I launched a new service. Dude, if you know anyone, that'd be great. Perfect. Now they just equipped you to help them again.
That's good stuff. I love it. So let me ask you about your book. So you wrote a book about all this. Did that have an impact on your business? The fact that you have a book out, does that change something in terms of either a credibility thing or an exposure thing, awareness thing, opportunities? How does a book impact what you're doing?
Yeah, definitely. So having written a book and worked with a lot of people in writing books, I would say the thing that was most surprising to me was the clarity. In the process of writing a book, you become so clear on who you are, what you do, and how you do it. Because if you're not, your book's not going to be great. It's going to be too long. You're going to be talking in circles. And so it forced me to be exceptionally clear. And I'm really clear. Like we have processes, we have systems, we have stuff that works. But it really made me think about like, oh, you know what? We have core principles, but I'm not sure I've really focused and documented those. Oh, we have a timing and a cadence. Like, let's really document that. And so I would say the first thing that comes from your book is clarity. That will carry over into your ability to close more people, to do better social posting, to be a better podcast guest, to be better on stages, because your message is so clear. Having a book is a no-brainer. If you are trying to position yourself as an authority or have credibility in any space, period, you need a book. You need the right kind of book, though. And this is where I always give people the little like asterisk next to that statement. You need a persuasive book that's high value, that's less than 150 pages. It's usually between 100 and 150 pages. So people can read it quickly, get a lot of value, and be inspired to take action. Longer books don't mean more credibility. Shorter books mean you're probably not super credible. So there's an art to writing the right book, and you need the right partner who can guide you to that so that you can have what happens with me. I just showed up to a mastermind event. The guy walked in holding my book and said, hey, I read it on the airplane and I could see all the postmarks. And he said, I have questions. That's what you want. You want people to get your book, read the book, and then reach out to you and go, hey, I did this. And so I typically book meetings 3-4 weeks out. And in that 3 to 4 week period, it is very common for people to buy the book or the audiobook, show up to the meeting. And I have people hold the book up and go, dude, I read your book and I tried to cram it in yesterday because I was, we're all procrastinators. And I could. Like I read it in 90 minutes or, 2 hours yesterday, depending on your pace of reading. And I have questions. Like I'm really curious. And so not only does it build credibility, it moves people so much further down the conversation quickly. And yes, you're going to book more stages, more podcasts, you're going to make more money. Your clients are going to have less friction because you're now the perceived authority. So yeah, I can't advocate for it enough. I wish I'd written a book sooner, and I wish I had done it for all my other companies.
Very cool. That's great though. And it certainly shows the value of it. It's also a really easy talking point, right? I mean, if you have a book and somebody's read it or even skimmed it, at least it gives you something to talk about right from jump. So, there's that warm introduction already started, which is really nice. All right. So where can people find you, find your services, and connect with you?
Yeah, so you can grab a copy of the book, Connection Expansion, on Amazon, all formats, and an audiobook if you want to listen to me talk for an hour and 50 minutes. ConnectionExpansion.com will take you to information about ACE's Connection Group, which is our free community where we help you make connections. We make connections for others. That also will drop you on my website, and there's a whole bunch of information, links, and everything else there as well.
Awesome. Thanks for that. All right, I have one last question I've got to ask because it's important and I'm always curious to know what everyone's going to say. And that's, what's your number one tip for success as a business owner or an entrepreneur?
Yeah, the number one tip for success is going to come down to the 5 principles. And so it's not one tip, it's going to be a stack. Add value, control what you can control, train by doing, and then the last 2 go together, which is never make an assumption about anyone and never judge a connection, always meet everybody.
Awesome. Great advice. Multiple pieces of advice. I said one, but that's all right. We'll let you get away with it this time. Perfect. Thanks a lot. All right. It's just about time to wrap things up. I want to thank you again so much, Devin, for sharing all your insights and great tips with us. Visit school.com/aces-connection-society for an invite to build strategic connections in the ACES Connection Group. Enjoy free courses, great people, expert interviews, and more. Thanks for tuning in. And as always, remember, no matter what you want from your business and your life, don't compromise, optimize.